By the end of the year, I had a spreadsheet of every topic that most Black comics nationally were discussing. And I just went, okay, cool.
You got your perspective. I just want to be happy. Don't you want to be happy? So let's get right into what I think you do as well as anybody in the world, which is why we're so happy to have you here. From a content creation standpoint, from a creative standpoint, how do you personally as a human like think about that? How did you come, you know, what kind of process, even as a child, back to being 4, did you have comedy around the house? Did it come natural? Were you distracting teachers in 3rd grade? Like, what was your early process and what has become your professional process?
Comedy was escapism for me. I wasn't in the same school system for more than 2 years until high school. So
Wow.
It was the constant reacclimation to the social scenes and circles of people around Birmingham. And like I would take the radio. My father was in journalism, and so I would follow him to speaking engagements and stuff like that. And you know, he was a lot more wokey woke than me in terms of his content and what he spoke for and what he fought for. But the oration part of it, I'm sure I got from him. I'd say the first big delve was in the 6th grade. I decided to make my own comic book. I was obsessed with comic strips. We read the newspaper as a family every Sunday morning. That was our thing. We sit the paper down and pull it apart like a turkey, and everybody would read a different section. And so, you know, I was into Marmaduke and Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes, the whole run. And I drew my own comic book, and then I would charge students 50 cents to read it. And then you had to bring it back. It was like a one comic book blockbuster. And I think that was my first hustle. The concept of a copy machine and a stapler just didn't.
You missed it. You missed it.
I was like, no, this is the only one. You have to give it back on Thursday because I'm getting ice cream money from Terrence.
Roy, on the record, who tried to not bring it back on time in the history of this business? Anybody?
There was a guy, Trey McClure. We're friends now, so I can call him out by his full name. He held on to Mr. Goose a little longer than he should. Didn't pay any late fees. It's all love, Trey. I know this is going to get back to you because Alabama likes to gossip. So for me, that was kind of where, you know, being funny started, and high school was really where things started moving. I got cut from my high school baseball team my freshman year, but I wanted to learn and see, well, if I suck, what are they doing right? So I volunteered to be the bat boy, equipment manager, whatever you want to call it. And I just trailed the varsity kids around for a whole season. And they did the food fundraisers where you sell the chips to raise money to pay for the uniform. And I outsold everyone in the school.
Interesting.
And so that was when you start noticing how you need to build relationships. And sometimes it's not what you're selling, it's who you are. The product becomes secondary to a greater degree. There's a gentleman that my father worked for named A.G. Gaston, who was one of the first Black millionaires. And A.G. Gaston had a mantra. It was called find a need and fulfill it. And so that always stuck with me. And to bring you to the present, comedically and where content creation is concerned, for me, it's always been about seeing, all right, what isn't out there? And is there a way to make that feel like something that's already happening now? I sold a project to Comedy Central that we ended up shooting a pilot for. It was still in development. And it's about a probation officer. And it's about a probation officer and his relationship with his client. And to kind of show a different side of what law enforcement is. Probation is law enforcement. It's closer to social work on the spectrum of, you know, kicking ass, but it is law enforcement. And when you really boil the show down to a lot of degrees, there's a procedural element to it. But so it feels like something you've seen before, but it's about a world that you know absolutely nothing about. And I think there's a value in being unique. And for me, that came, I got turned, I guess when I think about it now, all of my best moments came from when I was rejected. BET passed on me for Comic View for 1 year in 2002. So much like baseball, okay, y'all didn't pick me. Who did you pick? Let's see what they did. And I stepped for an entire season and watched Comic View. It's like 40 episodes, 6 comics an episode. And I just cataloged every topic that was breached on the show.
Interesting.
And I just kept a list of how many comedians talked about this, 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 and this. And by the end of the year, I had a spreadsheet of every topic that most Black comics nationally were discussing. And I just went, okay, cool. I won't do any jokes about that. So let's just start there and see if we can do something that hasn't been heard before. And off that alone, that should get me a look. It doesn't mean that my joke is going to be the funniest, but it will be the most different. And if I can at least have that advantage over you when it comes time to pick tapes, then I think that's something worth exploiting. And so
right.
that's what I've always tried to do.
It's interesting you bring that up, because for me, and I talk a lot, I produce so much content, but so much of my strength and so much of what I attribute the good things that have happened to me is about listening. And the story you just told is a really strong listening story. The baseball story was a strong listening story. Do you feel like observation and listening is foundational for you?
Yeah, I think that's more important than execution, because you got to know where to shoot. You got to know where to aim the gun before you shoot.
It's the insight. It's a strategy.
Yeah, it's a sniper. You're sitting for hours and hours taking in information and deciding when is the exact proper moment, to mount your attack. And so for me, it's definitely about listening. It's definitely about assessing the marketplace, seeing what's being sold and seeing what's getting on. And then also trying to, pull a Wayne Gretzky and be ahead of the puck, which is why COVID is so interesting to me, in terms of comedy creation and content creation as a whole, because not only do you have a pandemic where people are in pain and people are going to be hurting, and regardless if a vaccine came tomorrow, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be dealing with a lot of physical hurt, a lot of emotional hurt. I lost an aunt in February, so I can't imagine what other people are going through. So where there's pain, there's laughter, there's an opportunity for a laugh, but you don't know how long. And then on top of that, you have an election coming on the backside of this. And if you think that elections don't affect the type of content that ends up on television, you're wrong. So it's about looking and figuring out, okay, what can you pitch or what can you create today that's going to still have an impact no matter who wins in November and no matter what people are going through. The thing that's interesting now about comedy, Chris Rock said, and I'm paraphrasing him, but he basically said, everything that I do is to convince people to come see me live. Everything in his portfolio was about getting you to pay the $50 or whatever. He's not $50, he's probably like $100 now, but to come see me live. Come see this movie, watch this TV show, whatever. Well, the come see me live element isn't really there right now for comedians, and you don't know when that's going to come back. So you have to do things that maintain relevance so that when people are ready to go back out and when people have enough money on a regular basis to go back out, because I'm not going to sit here and act like what I do is similar to the other people we're going to talk to today. What I do is a disposable income activity that can hopefully alleviate a little bit of, I'm no different than a sip of wine. For me,
that's right. It's 100% escapism. It's 100%.
So, I think when people get back on their feet and the unemployment dries up, the first thing you aren't thinking about is coming to see some jokes from me inside of a Corona hut, which is what a comedy club is, as far as the low ceiling, everybody's together. That's a hut. That's a Corona hut. And, so it'll be a while. So it's about figuring out content and ways to do things that keep you relevant and keep you
on that note, because for everybody who's joining in, #marketing for the now, please tell us what you're thinking about this interview with Roy. These are about 15-minute blasts. So before I lose you, Roy, talk to me about the Call-In digital show, because I think as I'm listening to you, it makes a whole lot of sense why you're leaning in that direction.
Well, because I feel like without getting into too much detail about it, I feel like it's an opportunity to unite people. And I see what's happening with a lot of the Zoom shows now. Like if you peep the game from the beginning of quarantine, where you had a surge in people becoming content creators. So there's fewer consumers of content. Everybody's grabbing a microphone. I've gone to the camera stores in New York, and every time I try to get a camera component, it's sold out, or there's a 2-week back order because everybody's buying the same stuff now. I think that we are all one. And so I did morning radio for 10 years, and the best part of morning radio was talking to the streets. And I think that's the most interactive way, to go about doing things. And radio was a place where I was able to really build a lot of relationships because I did prank phone calls. And so with the prank calls, I took prank phone calls, and this is pre-YouTube. This is 02, 03. So the only way you went viral was over an email, where someone would send you an email and say, download this. And you would just download random stuff to your laptop. And that's kind of how I was able to kind of grow my comedy a little bit. And so through that, what I learned was that it's laughs that connect people. So if we can all laugh together, then I think there's something collective about that. And so when I look at the marketplace and when I find a need to fulfill, I think that the sense of collective conversation comedically, most comedy conversations are observational. They're voyeuristic. Hey, watch me talk to this person versus, hey, let's talk. And I think that's the cool thing about Instagram Live is that people have a direct line. I think there's a way to kind of set that up a little bit more, more formally. Real quick,
please.
The prank call thing. What we did, because I was having trouble breaking into prank phone calls in other markets, and it just goes back to finding a need and fulfilling it. I was having trouble breaking into comedy clubs in certain markets because I didn't have a television credit. But I peeped that most comedy clubs value comedians that have media reach. And so the thing I knew about radio at the time is that most radio in smaller AA, AAA baseball cities, Omaha, Syracuse's, Columbia, Missouri's of the world, they're carrying jocks in the afternoon or in the morning that are by themselves, or it's a two-person show, so they don't have a lot of content. We're only playing the prank calls in Birmingham. They're not, and then they go in a vault forever. So I would contact DJs in cities where I wasn't getting booked at the comedy club and mail them the prank phone calls for free and just say, play them and say my name. I don't care what you do with them after that. They're yours forever. And they would play them. I'd let that marinate for 3 months. Then I would call the comedy club and say, hey, I'm on the radio in your city every week. You should probably book me at your club. And that's how I was able to expand my reach comedically and able to leverage those fans. The one mistake I made was not having an email list.
You didn't have the data.
Do you understand the data I would have had if I'd have just been collecting emails since 02?
Yes, Roy, I do. That's
the one thing I wish I had understand. Back.
No, but honestly, I think the one thing that, that's fine. But I say this a lot to my team. A lot of people value data very highly, and the world does, and I do. But actual attention and brand really, really gets underestimated. And the part, I was listening very intently, say my name and say it right, and that's it, was exactly the punchline of why you're sitting here today. And I'm really thrilled to be co-hosting this day with you, and I appreciate you, and thanks for getting up early. Hey, everybody on YouTube, first of all, thank you so much. So humbled for your time. I don't wear a watch, but time is the biggest asset, so thank you for watching that video. If you got some value out of that, there's plenty more where that came from. Feel free to check it out.